We're on our way to San Dionisio Ocotepec to learn about DAVA Artisan Design, a Oaxacan business run by Zapotec women that produce elaborate handmade footwear using indigenous textiles. To get there, we'll head out about 40 miles southeast from Oaxaca City, driving through the Central Valley. Our journey follows a path lined by dramatic mountains and infinite skies, small towns, stretches of communal land used for farming, and countless archaeological sites, offering a glimpse into ancient worlds that refuse to be hidden. The past blends with the present here. The towns on this side of the valley consist of 2,000 to 10,000 people, each location with its own histories, traditions, crafts, and foods. In most of them, a variant of the indigenous language Zapotec is spoken. Oaxaca is marked by thousands of years of cultural development in regional pockets separated by mountains and long distances, where families and tribes created customs and ways of life, speaking languages that originated from large linguistic branches, breaking into variants over time. Just like natural species evolve distinctly in different contexts, language and culture have continued to diversify and change during many years. As a result, Oaxaca has maintained an intense cultural diversity and preservation of identity even after the pressures of assimilation and globalization, which typically force people to standardize communication and economic activities for the mutual goal of earning income and improving their quality of life. Those noble goals have a negative side, however, as less and less Oaxacans speak indigenous languages, dramatically changing one generation from another, cutting access to ancient knowledge, worldviews, and even values. Driving through the Central Valley is an experience of passing through physical milestones of past civilizations, manifested in the Zapotec religious temples of Mitla, believed to be the gateway between the living and the dead, constructed around 850 AD. The former city-state of Yagul is little more than a stone's throw away from the freeway, first occupied between 500 and 100 BC. The slightly hidden terraces of past fortresses peek out from the sides of nearly every hill, waiting to be uncovered and celebrated. In a cave not far from here, one of the first domesticated examples of corn was discovered. They are all reminders that the present is built on the lives of past generations, however far back they go. As our drive continues, we are surrounded by fine artisan craft. A few kilometers from the highway lies Santa Cruz Papalutla, with the tradition of elaborate baskets and adornments made from carrizo, which is a thinner cousin of bamboo often found along streams and rivers. We can see the entrance to Teotitlán del Valle, world famous for its beautiful wool rugs, many made with natural dyes such as from the cochineal insect, used for thousands of years for its intense burgundy color. Other fine craft traditions such as elaborate candle making are also sources of great local pride. Along the mountains, there are pueblos such as San Lucas Chiavini, with fine seamstresses who hand-embroider aprons, napkins, dress shirts with an uncommon mastery. Next to them live ceramicists in San Marcos Tlapazola, whose work with red clay have earned worldwide recognition. Despite these ancestral traditions and skills handed down each generation, most residents in the Central Valley depend on different activities for their income, such as the sale in local markets of leftover crops after seasonal farming, and any number of small business ventures, such as corner stores and mom-and-pop cafes and bakeries, moto taxis, intercity taxis, paper and copy stores, and cyber cafes. Mezcal production is also growing, though it takes a heavy investment that not everyone can afford. As the market resets due to larger macroeconomic forces, it becomes harder to get by selling what you grow or what you weave on a small scale, causing people to migrate, families to separate, traditional ceremonies to cease, culture and identity to change. People lose their relationships with the land they used to farm, and now from afar these same people often dream of returning to their pueblo. There are other options, however. A movement to preserve and ethically monetize certain traditions, such as artisan craft, offer various paths to celebrating cultural diversity, increasing income, and improving one's quality of life locally, thus reducing the pressure to migrate. The organization Waxifornia, for example, was initially founded as an academic project which allowed students of design to work alongside artisans and hands-on exercises that encouraged playful experimentation with traditionally used craft materials. It resulted in an explosion of creativity, new prototypes for new markets that artisans hadn't considered prior, and an uncommon amount of ownership over the process by the artisans. The success of the program has led to it establishing sales channels with wholesale customers, increasing artisan incomes exponentially. There are also Oaxacan trailblazers like DAVA Artisan Design that set an example for other small businesses to follow. We're arriving at their community, San Dionisio Ocotepec, situated in the mountains immediately above the Central Valley on the way to the isthmus. The town is a bit larger than its neighbors, with over 10,000 residents, 75% of which speak a variant of the Zapotec language. While many of them plant and harvest in the fields, selling some of the extra produce in local markets, others go to Matatlan and Mitla to work for mezcal companies, bars, and stores, or as domestic help. Some work in the tomato greenhouses in the neighboring town of Guila. The Garcia family established DAVA Artisan Design over many years, navigating the crossroads of cultural preservation and contemporary design, with the mission of creating sustainable employment for women. As an enterprise directed by Zapotec women, they have created a network of over 100 artisans that produce fine indigenous textiles, whose fabrics and embroideries are now showcased on beautiful shoes and sandals. The roller coaster ride in the Mexican economy has encouraged the family to continually innovate. In fact, it was an economic crisis that inspired the current version of the business. In the 1980s, their father, Herman Garcia, began learning how to make traditional sandals made of leather and tire rubber for farmers, selling on weekends in local markets. When those customers began migrating in droves to the U.S. after NAFTA was signed, the family was forced to take on other work, with all of the adolescent daughters pitching in to buy and sell construction materials to make ends meet. However, their mother, Clara Garcia, had a passion for designing footwear and saw an opportunity to create something new in a way that celebrated Oaxacan culture and its textile traditions. The first prototypes were made with seeds linked together, instantly receiving praise from visiting international designers that happened to see their products in the market. That was the beginning of DAVA. From that moment, the family began a path that continues to this day, which has allowed them to open their own store in downtown Oaxaca, build a professional e-commerce website, expand sales to vast numbers of national and international clients, build a new factory, and employ more local women. They have amassed over 35,000 followers on Facebook and are frequently approached by media outlets and politicians wanting to know how to support them and showcase their company as the new face of progress led by indigenous women in Oaxaca, the state with the second highest rate of poverty in the country. In many Oaxacan communities, customs persist that do not allow women to have employment once married. Women who are widows or unmarried are stigmatized and frequently can't find paid work either. Without their own source of income, women are frequently forced into financially dependent relationships with their husbands and other male family members. Slowly, these roles are changing, however, in part through federal policy mandating women's participation in local government, as well as a consequence of men migrating out of the community. In men's absence, women have gained an unexpected amount of agency and leadership. DAVA proudly has a role in these changes, offering employment opportunities to women and showing a path toward greater autonomy and economic independence. We've arrived at the DAVA factory, where we'll sit down for a chat with Laura Garcia, who leads the production team.
Buenas tardes, yo soy Laura García y formo parte del grupo DAVA. La empresa se dedica a fabricar calzado artesanal, hechos a mano. La producción de un par de zapatos empieza desde el tejedor y la bordadora, es como el paso número 1. Desde que el tejedor empieza a urdir todo su telar, empieza a plasmar toda la cosmovisión de su pueblo, de su cultura, en un telar de pedal o un telar de cintura. El segundo paso, o al mismo tiempo, es la bordadora que empieza a bordar de la misma manera toda la cosmovisión de su cultura y de su población. Esos son como los primeros pasos. De ahí el segundo o el tercer paso vienen el sojado de la plantilla y la serigrafía. El siguiente paso es donde cortamos los telares dependiendo del molde del zapato. El zapato o tenis es como un rompecabezas que tiene varias uniones. Ya cuando ya tenemos el paquetito de todas las piezas del zapato, unimos todas las partes por medio de la costura. Cuando terminamos de unirlo, lo pasamos al área de jareta. Nuestro proceso de hormado de los tenis son por medio de la jareta, en donde se costura alrededor y al momento de montarlo no ocupamos pegamentos. Después del montado viene el rayado nos indica hasta dónde debemos de pegar, ponerle el pegamento. El siguiente pues es el ponerle el pegamento y el último es el vulcanizado, es el pegado. Lo pegamos a base de calor. Las ventas han mermado mucho debido a la pandemia. La pandemia vino y nos puso un estate quieto a muchas empresas como la nuestra, y la nuestra principalmente pues nos vino a dar un estate quieto muy fuerte. Bajaron las ventas casi un 80%. Nosotros como cooperativa teníamos un pequeño ahorro para poder abrir una tienda en el 2020, pero pues lo ocupamos para poder mantener a los colaboradores, para no despedirlos ni nada por el estilo, y para poder subsistir toda esta pandemia. Adicional también para que todo el equipo pudiera seguir manteniéndose y tener lo básico, ¿no?, en su mesa. Ahorita ya se están componiendo un poco las ventas y ya vamos más a flote. Esperamos lograr en los próximos 5 años que la empresa sea ecoamigable con el medio ambiente, poder crecer en las ventas. Queremos llegar a más países, a más personas, poder llevar un poco de nuestra cultura plasmada en nuestro calzado a más personas. Adicional, que queremos poder apoyar más a la economía local de nuestros pueblos originarios, creando más fuentes de empleo para mujeres, para hombres dentro de nuestra comunidad. Como DAVA quisiéramos poder tener tiendas propias para que podamos generar más utilidades para todas las mujeres y las comunidades, y nos gustaría tener tiendas físicas primero en la República Mexicana, de ahí pues si se puede en el mundo, o poder crecer en la plataforma de la página web, poder llegar a más personas. Los retos en DAVA, en tema de producción, nos gustaría implementar algunas herramientas manuales en donde nos pueda apoyar a producir más, como por ejemplo en el tema del rayado. Necesitamos como una maquinita manual donde pueda prensar los tenis y podamos hacer el rayado, y que el rayado sea perfecto, ya que el rayado determina la calidad el 90% de la calidad del zapato. Adicional, nos gustaría tener todo el tema de ecoamigable, que la suela sea biodegradable. Quisiéramos hacer una investigación para que la suela sea biodegradable, y todos nuestros productos ya el 90% es biodegradable, y seguirlo manejando. Los telares son con hilos naturales de algodón o de lana, y también en todo nuestro proceso que no generemos basura. Todo el tema de la luz, que sea de fuentes naturales como la luz solar, que tengamos un biodigestor para el tema del área de curtido, que podamos captar el agua de lluvia para que pueda irse al tema de la curtiduría, aunque utilizamos poca agua, pero sí nos gustaría ser como ecoamigables en todos nuestros procesos. Quisiéramos poder tener un mejor control de los inventarios, de la contabilidad, de la administración y una mejor calidad de nuestros procesos de producción.